Welcome, everyone, to the latest edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Funny enough, every time I do my welcome everybody, or however I say it to open the show, you see my hands here, right? Like, you can't see. I put my hands out wide. You can't tell that. Or maybe you can. Maybe I just can't see it as we're recording. I don't know. But maybe I need to stop. Maybe I need to put my hands right in front of my face. You might prefer to see my hands than my face. I don't know. A lot to get to on this podcast today. The Browns are about to play their final game of the regular season, but who will actually suit up and who will actually be on the field for the Browns, including a record that the Browns are on the verge of breaking, something that's never been done in the history of the NFL. The Browns can do it this weekend. Plus, last night, they announced the players who would be on the Pro Bowl team, plus a number of alternates as well. Who made it from the Browns? Who's an alternate for the Browns? What did they get right? What did they get wrong? We'll look at I think there were some mistakes involving the Browns and involving other teams when it comes to the Pro Bowl. Although I don't like to obsess on it because in the end, it's the Pro Bowl. It's really that important. It's the players, you want to get recognized. Everybody wants to get recognized for what they do if they do it well. I get that, but you don't want to make too big a deal about that. And plus the Cavaliers, I'll spend a minute or two on the Cavs, who's put up 140 points against the Wizards. And does that mean anything? Is it a precursor to something happening? That's all coming up on today's edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers.
You're watching Adam the Bull on the Bet Rivers Network.
Get extra value this football season with Bet Rivers Squares. Win up to $10,000 in bonus money. Bet $10 in same-game parlays on any game with the Squares icon to earn a square. So things have been getting really exciting. Before we get to the Browns and the Pro Bowl in a minute, things getting really exciting as we head to the final week of the regular season and the second to final week of the competition of the Bet Rivers Predictors. And this is, we pick 5 games each week. A lot of the other hosts on the network. And I've been in first place for most of the year. A few weeks ago, about a month ago, I had 2 bad weeks in a row, and I dropped out of first, and I moved back into first. And this past week, I let you down, folks. I went 1-4. In fact, all the predictors did pretty badly this past week. I don't think anybody did better than 2 and 3. So right now, I'm in a 3-way tie, I believe, with Mike Missinelli and Jimmy Ott. For first place, and we're doing the competition through Wild Card Weekend. So I have 2 weeks to finish out strong and win this championship. It's my first year, and I expect to win. That's it. You got to play with confidence, and I got to win you people money, and I've been doing that for most of the year. But this past week, 1-4, unacceptable. Got to bounce back big this week. The Browns do not have to bounce back. We'll get to what we're expecting from them in this final week of the season in a few minutes. But first, let's talk Pro Bowl. The announcements of the Pro Bowl came out. The Browns have 4 or 5 players that have made the Pro Bowl roster. 3 starters, actually. On defense, Myles Garrett will start. Not a shock there. He is the likely defensive player of the year. On offense, 2 starters who some people might consider surprising. One is not surprising to me, and because I mentioned this yesterday, that I thought, Amari Cooper wasn't a name we were talking about a lot when it came to the Pro Bowl. But when I was looking yesterday, knowing that the Pro Bowl rosters were going to be announced, I was looking at the AFC, at the leaders in receiving yards and touchdowns and stuff like that. And what I noticed was that most of the guys in the top 10 in receiving and touchdowns are in the NFC. So I said, well, listen, Amari Cooper's had a great year. The touchdown number isn't high, but considering who he's played with and, his yardage total, I was like, well, I think he's got a chance. And then the more I looked it over, I said, Amari Cooper is second in the AFC in receiving yards, only behind Tyreek Hill. And you take 4 wide receivers. I said, Amari Cooper's definitely making the team. I wasn't sure if he was going to be a starter or not, because there are a couple of guys who had more touchdowns than him and had a similar amount of yards. But ultimately, he was named the starter along with Tyreek Hill, with Keenan Allen, who I thought could end up being the starter. But instead, Amari Cooper, the starter, and well-deserved. He's had a tremendous season, and he has been, along with David Njoku, who was not a starter, but he did make the Pro Bowl team. Travis Kelce is the starter at tight end. David Njoku is the second tight end. I thought they took 3 tight ends. I don't know why I was thinking 3. I think you can make a case for Evan Ingram as well as one of the other tight ends. I don't think there's anybody playing the position, especially in the AFC. David Njoku for the past 6 weeks has been better than Travis Kelce. I don't even think it's that. I don't even think it's that close. But Kelce gets the nod. Overall, the statistics a little better for the season, and he gets the hey, we've been there already. That's part of it. I don't like that, but it's part of it. Now, on the other hand, it's part of the reason that Joe Bitonio is a starter in the Pro Bowl. Joe Bitonio, along with Quentin Nelson, one of the starters at guard. Frankly, I didn't even think Joe Bitonio should have been on the team. I thought he could have been an alternate, which he wasn't. And 2 of the Browns' other offensive linemen, Wyatt Teller and Ethan Posick, were both announced as alternates. I think Wyatt Teller's been the Browns' best offensive lineman. I would have had Wyatt Teller as one of the 3 guards, maybe a starter, or maybe Joe Thuney is a starter and Wyatt Teller is the 3rd guard. I think Bitonio got that I've been there before break that Travis Kelce got as well. So in the end, it's not a huge deal. I think even being named as an alternate is a good recognition. The 5th, but just being named to the roster. I mean, for David Njoku to be a Pro Bowler, and again, only 2 tight ends make the Pro Bowl, after being just a guy for his first 6 years in the league, is quite an impressive step up. He has taken his game to way higher than I always thought he could be better, but I never thought he'd be this good. He's had a tremendous season. The 5th player to make the Pro Bowl for the Browns was Denzel Ward. I think Denzel was the biggest, I don't want to say controversy, but we were debating this on UCSS. I know Tyvis Powell thought that Denzel wouldn't get in because he missed some games with injury. I thought Denzel was tremendous, and then he got hurt. He missed a few games, and he hasn't been quite as good. So I thought there was a chance. Now, in the end, he made it as the 4th corner, so he's not a starter, but he still gets recognized for what's been an overall very good season. Other alternates besides the offensive lineman that I mentioned, JOK and Grant Delpit on the defense. Now, the JOK thing, I thought JOK yesterday, Tyvis and Jay thought JOK was a lock. I said he was a probable but not a lock, and ultimately he doesn't make it, which is unfortunate. Now, one thing I didn't really consider is that he's in the same group as TJ Watt, Khalil Mack, and Josh Allen. Those guys don't really play the same position that JOK does. They're 4-3 pass rushers, but the league looks at them in the same category as outside linebacker. So, of course, JOK didn't make it over those guys, which I get, but there should be a separate category for at least 2 guys, for 4-3 outside linebackers. And if that were the case, I think JOK would have made it. I think it's a little disappointing that the Browns only get 2 pro Bowlers and 2 alternates for the best defense in the league. I think, Grant Delpit gets recognized as an alternate. I think Greg Newsome could have at least been an alternate. I think Martin Emerson could have at least been an alternate. And I think Dalvin Tomlinson could have been an alternate as well. I was surprised Martin Emerson is not even, more than anybody else, I'm surprised Martin Emerson is not even an alternate on the Pro Bowl list. The guy has done a tremendous job. If you look at the quarterback, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? The QBR. I couldn't think of it. It's not actually a word. The QBR of quarterbacks going up against the Browns corners, they're like 1, 2, and 4, or 1, 3, and 4. I mean, all 3 of them are top 5 in the league. So the other corners not getting any recognition was a little surprising to me. I know he wasn't. I'll tell you who's playing great football is Ronnie Hickman. Now he didn't play much early in the season, so he wasn't going to make a Pro Bowl. 2 of the guys playing great football for the Browns, you can't put in the Pro Bowl because they haven't played long enough, are Ronnie Hickman and, of course, Joe Flacco. who's been as good as any quarterback in December, but you don't go to the Pro Bowl based on 5 games. That's not fair. And so it is what it is. So in the end, the Browns get 5 Pro Bowlers, 3 starters, 5 total Pro Bowlers, and 6 alternates. The other 2 that I haven't mentioned, both the kicker and the punter. I know a lot of us thought Dustin Hopkins would make the team. They only take 1 kicker. Justin Tucker, I think Dustin Hopkins clearly has been better than Justin Tucker this year. I think this was a mistake. I know Justin Tucker's been the best kicker in football, and if you had to make 1 kick in a big spot, I can't deny that you take Justin Tucker over Dustin Hopkins. But Dustin Hopkins has been the best kicker in the AFC this year. Only the kicker with the Cowboys, Aubrey, I can't think of his first name, has been better. He made the Pro Bowl. But Hopkins named as an alternate. So was Corey Bojorquez, the punter, who is back, by the way. I think he's going to play this week because they cut Matt Hawk, who was the punter that they signed last week, the former Colts punter who played for the Browns last week. So that's the thing. I don't want to get too caught up in it. In the end, most of the Browns players that deserve to be recognized were. I think the Browns should have had 6 Pro Bowlers. They had 5. Miles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Amari Cooper, David Njoku, I think were correct. I think Dustin Hopkins and JOK should have been on there. That would have been 6. I would have had Bitonio as an alternate. I would have had Wyatt Teller maybe even on there as a 7th or an alternate. Pochich fine. Delpit fine as an alternate. Bojorquez fine as an alternate. I would have had Greg Newsome as an alternate as well. I think he should have been there. And I'm sorry, maybe Greg Newsome, but certainly Martin Emerson. But Greg Newsome has found his niche. The Browns have a real good secondary, and I think you could argue that the Browns only getting 4 defensive players, including alternates, for the team that's been one of the best defenses we've seen in years is pretty crazy. Obviously gives a lot of credit to the coach, but I think guys have been ignored to some degree on the defense. Offensively, I mean, you get three guys, 2 starters, 3 guys total, 5 including alternates, including 3 offensive linemen. It's funny because obviously the defense has been better than the offense. Obviously, the offense has been better lately, but so there you go. There's nobody else. The only players that didn't even make alternate that I think got snubbed are Emerson, number 1, and Newsome, number 2. And I think Joel Bitonio should not have made the team. And I love Joel Bitonio. He's one of my favorite Browns. Great guy, great player. But he hasn't had a great season. He's been good, and he's been much better the second half, but I would not have had him as a Pro Bowler. Yesterday, Kevin Stefanski was asked about, will you play guys this game? So I got an email. This is crazy. I got an email from a guy who his email handle, it doesn't say his name. His name is listed as Get a Clue UCSS. And he sent me this 6-paragraph email about how basically myself and everybody else that's covering the Browns in Cleveland is an idiot because we keep saying this game is meaningless. We've been saying all week that the Browns-Bengals game is meaningless. And what I thought he was going to argue is that we're idiots because there's something to be said about keeping the good times rolling to win 5 in a row to end the season, or tying the franchise record, at least since they've been in the NFL, for 12 wins in a season, or every game matters or whatever. But his argument was none of those. His argument that, again, he wrote me 6 paragraphs about was that if the Browns win this game and finish 12-5, that they will have the second best record in the AFC. And thus, after the first round, the Browns would have home field advantage against anybody except for the Ravens. The problem with that email is you are wrong. You have no clue what you're talking about. You spent 6 paragraphs, buddy, crushing me and my colleagues, and you sound like a fool. You do not move. The team with the better record doesn't get home field. It probably should be, but that's not what it is. It's never been that way, and I don't know what the hell you're talking about. He says, well, home field advantage in the divisional round. A Browns win in Week 18 would give them a record of 12-5. If Buffalo beats Miami, no other AFC team could finish with a better AFC record. If the Browns then go on to win the wild card, they would proceed to play an opponent in the divisional round. If that opponent is anybody other than Baltimore, the Browns would host. No, they would not. Now, they could host, but it has nothing to do with whether they win or lose this game against the Bengals. The only way the Browns would host a game in the divisional round. Okay, right now, let's go. Let me bring up the playoff picture. Okay, I don't think it's going to end this way, but let's just do it based on what it is now. Right now, the Bills are the 6th seed, and the Colts are the 7th seed. And the Browns would play the Jaguars. Browns are the 5. Browns would play the Jaguars for the 4. Now, I don't think it's going to finish that way because I think Buffalo's going to beat Miami. But for argument's sake, it is what it is now. Let's stick with that, okay? Now, the Browns, if the Browns win, obviously to get to the divisional round, the only way they get a home game is if both the Bills and the Colts win their first-round playoff games over, in this case, what would be the Dolphins and the Chiefs. That's it. In that case, if that happened, the Browns would host, in this case, the 6th seed, the Bills, in the second round of the playoffs. And that would be the case whether the Browns win or lose this Sunday against Cincinnati. It's irrelevant. The reason the Browns would host is because with the 4 teams left, the Ravens, the Browns, the Bills, and the Colts, the Browns would be the second highest seeded team. Their record at that point would be irrelevant. Let's go with the other way. You say, okay, well, if the Bills beat the Dolphins, then the Browns would have a better record if they win than the Chiefs and the Bills. And that is correct. If the Browns win and go 12-5, even if the Bills and Chiefs win this week, the Browns would have a better record as the 5 seed than the 2-seeded Bills and the 3-seeded Chiefs. However, if the 2-seeded Bills, if it gets to that, and the 3-seeded Chiefs both win, the Browns would play in Baltimore. But let's say only one of them wins. Let's say the Chiefs lose to the Dolphins in the first round, and the Bills win. All right, the Chiefs. Will the Chiefs play the Dolphins? Doesn't matter. The 2-seed the Bills end up the 2 seed because they beat the Dolphins last week of the regular season. If the Browns win, even if they beat the Bengals, even if they lose to the Bengals, the Browns doesn't matter. Either way, the Browns would play, in that case, the 2-seeded Bills. And the game would be in Buffalo, no matter what the Bills' record is and no matter what the Browns' record is. The Bills would be the 2 seed, the Browns would be the 5. If the Browns have 12 wins and the Bills have 11, it's still in Buffalo. So you, my friend, are a dope. No offense, but you're a dope for sending a 6-paragraph email plus follow-up emails to try to explain a point that is 100% wrong. And that is why, my friends, the Browns will not be playing anybody they can't afford to lose this week. Joe Flacco, we already know, is not going to play on Sunday. The Browns announced that Jeff Driscoll, who they just signed off practice squad to their active roster, will be the starting quarterback this Sunday against the Bengals. He's played for the Bengals in the past. And P.J. Walker will be the backup. Before we get to the rest of the lineup changes, let's say that this Jeff Driscoll is going to be the 5th starting quarterback for the Browns this year. The previous 4, Deshaun Watson, DTR, P.J. Walker, and Joe Flacco, of course, have all won at least one game for the Browns. If the Browns beat the Bengals with Jeff Driscoll as their quarterback, they will be the first team in the history of the NFL to win, to get at least one win from 5 different starting quarterbacks. The fact that they would have made the playoffs, now the 5th one doesn't matter because the playoffs they're already in. That's the only reason they're playing the 5th one. But it's a cool stat, and it would be a record for the Browns and quite the accomplishment if they could do it and get to their 12th win. But in no universe do you risk key players. And that's why, because the game does not matter, as I said initially. And again, that emailer was lost. Joe Flacco is not going to play. Who else is not going to play in this game? Well, I think when it comes to running back, Jerome Ford, who's been a little banged up and is coming off maybe his best game as a Brown last week, he will not play. There's no way you play Kareem Hunt, the veteran touchdown, goal line, fourth down back. He's not playing. So I think Pierre Strong and some guys from the practice squad will be the backfield. And I'm curious to see. I'd like to see Pierre Strong get 15, 20 carries or touches and see what he can do with it, because I've been wanting him to get more work. He got more work one game this year. I thought he did well. I know he fumbled last week. There's been, supposedly he's not a great run blocker, but or a blitz pickup guy. I would like to see him get an opportunity this week. Of course, Amari Cooper will not play. Good news is Elijah Moore is practicing, which means he's recovering from his concussion. He has not cleared concussion protocol, and there's no chance you're going to play him this week. So Cooper, in terms of wide receivers, Cooper and Moore are not going to play. I would assume another veteran, Marquise Goodwin, will not play this week, and we will see a lot of Cedric Tillman, Derek Bell, and probably Austin Watkins, or possibly Austin Watkins, up from the practice squad. I again, like I talked about Pierre Strong, would like to see Cedric Tillman and David Bell targeted quite a bit and see what they could do in this game. I think on the offensive line, you will not see Bitonio, Teller, or Posick. I think all the other offensive linemen on the roster will play, including the current starters at tackle, Garen Christian and James Hudson. I just think your starting guards and center will not play. You will not see David Njoku. Probably any of the other tight ends, including Harrison Bryant, will be out there. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm sure Myles Garrett wants to play. There is no way I'm playing him. Obviously, I'm not playing Agbo Okoronkwo, but good news is, for the first time in over a month, he practiced yesterday, which makes you think there's a good chance they can have him back for the playoffs. That's pretty big news. As Darius Smith and Dalvin Tomlinson and Shelby Harris, none of these guys are playing. I'm going all young guys on the defensive line. Linebackers interesting. I'd probably not play JOK. I'll be curious to see who else plays. Anthony Walker's been banged up. He's not going to play. Ward, Newsome, Emerson, Delpit, who's obviously dealing with an injury and is not ready to go yet, could be back for the playoffs. None of those guys are going. I'm going with the young guys. I'm going with Ronnie Hickman. I want to see him play more. I know he's played very well, but I'd still like to see him play a little more, get more experience. Juan Thornhill probably won't play. We'll see Mike Ford, Cam Mitchell, DeAnthony Bell. We'll probably see Deron Harmon, who's a veteran, but you got to play some of these guys, right? So we'll see Matthew Adams at linebacker, the special teams guy. If Jordan Kanasic is healthy, he'll probably play. Tony Fields will probably play some linebacker as well. So most of you key guys, I guess Corey Bojorquez is going to punt because they cut the other punter. No Dustin Hopkins. Haven't heard any updates on him. They have not cut Riley Patterson. Even if he was ready, I don't think you'd use him this week. So probably Riley Patterson will kick again. Finally, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I obviously have not talked much about the Cavs. I have some strong feelings on Donovan Mitchell, and I think the Cavs really need to move on from him. I think I and many others were wrong. I don't think the Cavs should have ever traded for Donovan Mitchell. It's no offense against him. He just doesn't fit on this team. If anything, he may have held up the growth of some of the young players. They're not good enough with him. You can't win. You just can't win a championship with a small guard as your best player. Steph Curry and Isaiah Thomas are the only guys who have done it, and those guys are two of the best players in the history of the game. Donovan Mitchell's an excellent player, but he's not one of the best players in the history of the game. He's not that level of player. And the hope was that Mobley would turn into the superstar. It hasn't happened. Maybe it never was going to. But if anything, his growth may have been stunted. But a nice win yesterday. They scored at least 33 points every quarter, crushed the Wizards, who are, I'd say a nice win. The Wizards are like the second worst team in the league. 140-101, Jared Allen, 17 points, 19 boards, and 7 assists. Max Strus, who's not been playing particularly well, he had a good game on a very efficient 9 of 13 and 6 of 8 from 3. He had 24 points and 4 rebounds. Donovan Mitchell had 22, and Karis LeVert had 21 off the bench as well. All right, that's going to do it for me today. I'll be back on Sunday after the Browns-Bengals game. We'll recap that one and start getting ready for the playoffs. Thanks to Brian Monzo for producing. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. I'll talk to you next time. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See ya.